Welcome back to Beating Depression and Anxiety for Life. We're on lesson 4 now. This is the chemical and physical connection. So this is the part that we typically go straight to in traditional or Western medicine. Well, I wouldn't say traditional, I'd say modern medicine. We go straight to the chemical and physical connection. But we're going to look at it a little differently in this program. The serotonin model, serotonin deficiency model, is really coming under strong scrutiny. And if you'll look at the extra reading for the lesson, A Mind of Your Own, you can read more about that. But serotonin deficiency may be a symptom of depression and anxiety, but it is not the cause. And so we are looking for root causes in this program. So underlying causes of depression and anxiety, there are dozens of them. We're going to look at a few here. Move this over a little bit. Okay, so physical sources, nutritional deficiencies, exercise, sunshine. I want you to look at these two, hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. There's a huge percentage of people, there are a huge percentage of people out there that have one of these two issues and suffer from depression and anxiety. And once those conditions are remedied, the mental component, the psychological component of depression and anxiety really evaporates. So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about later. Fibromyalgia, yeast infections, poor adrenal function. And there are tests for these out there. You can look into those, but we're going to talk a little bit later about kind of correcting the overall system, and that will take care of most of these. Now, hypo and hyperthyroidism, you really have a hard time correcting those with just nutrition. So we'll talk about that later on. Hormonal disorders, Cushing's disease, Addison's disease, again, thyroid issues and adrenal issues. One of the main things that we want to look at is hypoglycemia, anxiety and depression. If you can tie one thing pretty consistently to mood, it's your blood sugar levels. Food allergies are another one. Heavy metals, PMS, sleep disturbances. There are a lot of infections that increase the likelihood of depression and anxiety. And then there are medical conditions. So look through these lists and see if any of those leap out at you. The link, it will be in the notes, and so you can come back to this. But if any of these leap out at you, or if you've been wondering about any of these, or if you'd like to get tested for any of these, it's a good time to do that. There are a lot of drugs that have the side effect that we don't hear about. We don't read the long list of side effects, but if you look down at these, some people that are on blood pressure medicine, birth control pills, that's a huge one. Anti-inflammatory agents, which is counterintuitive, but they have the side effects of depression and anxiety pretty strongly associated with them. So just look down this list and see if anything kind of leaps out at you, or if there's something that you want to investigate further. So you want to rule out some underlying causes. Thyroid function is a huge one. Blood sugar. Hypoglycemia is related to alcoholism, drug abuse, and very strongly related to depression and anxiety. And if you will start to chart your periods of your day and compare the emotions with the times of day that you eat and what you eat, you'll start to see a connection pretty quickly with blood sugar. Foods that cause inflammation. The movie that you are encouraged to watch before this lesson is by Dr. Terry Wahls, and most of the foodstuffs that we ingest in this country cause inflammation. So we're talking gluten, dairy in a lot of people, sugar, processed foods, food colorings, and things like that. And they cause inflammation, and we've already established in this program, I hope, that depression and anxiety are really inflammatory responses in the body. And then vitamin deficiencies. There's not a person that lives in modern day Western culture that isn't deficient in some very important vitamins. The way we eat, it just does not provide those. As hunter-gatherers, we gathered all the time. We ate constantly just to maintain the calorie load that we needed. And when you're eating constantly, you're getting more and more of the things that you need in your body, more of the minerals and vitamins. When we eat 3 meals a day that are mostly made up of carbs and fast sugars, we're missing. We're filling up. We've got the calories, but we don't have the vitamins or nutrients that we need for our cells to function correctly. So there are a lot of labs that you can take. Comprehensive metabolic panel is not a bad idea for anybody. Anybody that is working, your health insurance should cover that. It's just a very basic overall test that looks at some broad levels. You'll have to ask for to make sure that the thyroid function is included, and read up on that, because there's a test that really indicates thyroid misfiring that is not included in the typical thyroid testing, but it's a big indicator that's coming out. So I think it's called a reverse T3. But if you're interested in that, look up the comprehensive tests on thyroid. You can add everything you can think of on to these tests. So vitamin D, magnesium. You can also add on sometimes adrenal functioning through different companies, and I'll talk a little bit more about those at the end. There's a test that is really popular right now, the MTHFR. It's a gene mutation. About half of Westerners have this gene mutation, and it's coming from a long enough history now of the food that we eat and the environmental factors. And so I had myself tested for that, and I had the mutation, but I really would encourage you not to waste the money. Half of us have this thing. It doesn't really help you to know that you have it unless you're going to do the things that you need to correct it. And you can do those things and should do those things anyway. So I would save my money on that. It's a big one. You'll hear a lot about it, but I wouldn't really, I wouldn't waste the money if I had to do it again. I think these are the corrections for that gene mutation are just basic nutritional changes that most of us need anyway. And then there are a lot of food allergy tests out there, but they're pretty unreliable, and I don't feel comfortable recommending any of them. I haven't seen enough consistency in those. I think the best way to figure out what foods, and you may not have an overall allergy, you may have an intolerance. It's more likely you would have an intolerance to these foods. The biggest culprits are gluten and dairy, and so the best way to figure out what foods you react to, and a lot of people react to eggs if they're buying them from the store. The best way to find out what foods you react to is just to do an elimination diet, and I'll post more about that at the end. So the most commonly needed supplements that are missing from most Westerners' diets: B6, B12, folic acid, magnesium, fish oil, and probiotics. You can be pretty sure vitamin D is another one that I didn't list there. That is a huge one. If you're low in vitamin D, you're really not going to feel very much energy, and you're not going to be able to calm your body down in a state of anxiety. So I would look into vitamin D as well. And then amino acids. And these are the top ones. Now, you may be low in something else, but I really want to encourage you. You can take, and I did when I was on this journey, when I started this journey, I probably spent $1,000 on different supplements trying to find out what my body needed. I don't really recommend that. I think that's a long way around. I think you can either look at a metabolic test or really just look at cleaning up your diet significantly. I really prefer to get most things through food, and we'll talk more about that at the end, but really increasing your overall intake of leafy greens, of onions, of mushrooms, of garlic, increasing your fruit and vegetable intake, you're really going to notice a difference in the way that you feel through food. And I just think food's an easier way. I don't like to take a lot of pills. I don't prefer it. But when you're getting started, you can pretty well target what you're missing by seeing your body's reaction if you take a supplement. One of the fastest ways to feel better is right here. This little picture of a dropper is B12. I am not a doctor, and I'm not going to tell you to go out and take that. I'm going to tell you that the studies show pretty clearly that people who take that show marked improvements in energy levels and in the ability just to feel better overall. Some people with anxiety get a little bit racy, heart racing on that, and so you have to be your own expert. You know, it's just like with any prescription drug, you have to say, you know what, this doesn't work for me, or this does work for me. B12 can be sold in capsule form too, and it's not as effective. The liquid form is absorbed by the body much quicker. So magnesium is one that most of us are low in. Fish oil calms and protects the brain. It decreases inflammation overall. I haven't seen any, except for the mercury toxicity, but you have to get a fish oil that's low in mercury. There aren't really any side effects to these. That's the good news. And probiotics, finding a really powerful probiotic is going to increase the good feelings in your body. It starts out in your gut, and we'll talk about that later, but probiotics are important. I get them through food, but you can also get them through supplement form. You just have to be careful about what you're buying and really read reviews. And then amino acids, that is a key. It was the key for me. It is the key for many people. In a lot of countries, amino acids are what are used for antidepressants and anti-anxiety. And I'll tell you why. They're the precursor to letting the brain function right. So if you don't have these amino acids in your bodies, and we don't, most of us, because they're not in our food system anymore. They don't come from grain-fed meat. They are in grass-fed animals. And so if you're not consuming those, if you're a vegetarian, or if you are eating meat that is not grass-fed, you're not getting nearly enough of the amino acids that we need for our chemical reactions in our brains to set off in the right direction. So amino acids are the precursors to your own body creating serotonin, dopamine, all the good stuff. And if they're not there, your body can't produce it. And so while an SSRI or another prescription medication might give you the serotonin or the dopamine, or let your body produce more, or block the things off that counter those chemicals in your brain, they don't cause your body to make them. And so why I like amino acids is they just help your body do what it's supposed to do. 5-HTP is the most commonly used one for depression and anxiety. It works in a lot of people. And we'll talk about some different ones right here. GABA is really good for people with anxiety. And you can get all of these at your GNC. You can order online if you want to research brands that are trustworthy. Tryptophan is the stuff that's found in turkey. It makes you tired after eating a turkey dinner. It used to be the #1 antidepressant in the country. Ironically, it was banned for sale in the United States the same year that Prozac went on the market. There was one bad batch that came out, and it had nothing to do with the tryptophan. It had to do with the casing. And so that drug was banned in the United States. You can still get it on Amazon from Canada. You can get it from several places. But tryptophan is a pretty powerful amino acid in the body, and it lets your brain create the things that it needs. There are several other ones. DPA for low endorphins. Tyrosine actually is a replacement for coffee if you're trying to get off coffee. It gives you a quick boost if you're a person with depression, if that happens in the morning. And not anything crazy, but just kind of a wide awake feeling. And glutamine for low blood sugar. This is a huge one. If you can start to notice how your blood sugar relates to your moods and your irritability and your anxiety, you will see a pattern. I have no doubt that you will see a pattern. Most people with depression and anxiety struggle with blood sugar. And glutamine counters the sugar that goes in. So if you eat something really sweet, or even just something that converts to sugar, like a lot of carbs, glutamine will help your body process those. And so they have these little strips that you can put on your tongue, and they melt after you eat a meal like that, if it's something that you really struggle with. Some people notice if you get jittery when you get hungry, if you get irritable, after you've eaten sugar, if you have really moody around your PMS time, then blood sugar is something you really need to look at. And SAMe for some, that was the one. 5-HTP did not work for me, unfortunately. It works for most people, but SAMe did, and it has the same effect, but it's really good for inflammation. So it's recommended for people with Parkinson's, for people with joint disorder, and for some reason SAMe was my savior. Now, I didn't get to it until the end. I did a lot of trial and error. The good thing to me about amino acids, if you read the side effects, there's really not a bad one. Some people that take SAM-E get a little jittery if they take too much. I had to figure out the amount that I could take and not get jittery, but it's basically, it causes my brain to create what it needs to react in a normal way. St. John's wort is the #1 antidepressant prescribed in Germany. They actually, it's a go-to. It's very subtle. Takes about 2 weeks to start working. The pills don't work nearly as well as the tincture. It does have some interactions with birth control and several medications. HIV medications are mentioned a lot. So make sure you check and see what kind of drugs that you're taking. Blood pressure medicine, I believe it might interact with too. So, see your doctor about that and see if there are any, you can look it up online, see if there are any indications for not taking it. But it's a very subtle and very powerful antidepressant, and it works in all the studies. It works just as well as SSRI. So if you're looking for a way to feed your body, it's also very high in nutrients that our bodies need, and that may be why it works. Probiotics. So your gut, you've heard this hopefully a lot now. It's coming into the mainstream media. It's coming, you'll see a lot of blogs, a lot of doctors are now starting to talk about it. I wouldn't say doctors in the clinics yet, but doctors that are on Oprah and things like that. It's getting a lot of attention. Probiotics, a lot of what we call depression and the things that we think are in our head, anxiety, are actually starting out in our guts. And so repairing the gut is huge. It's a big part of this. They're anti-inflammatory microbes. That's what probiotics are. And they affect the gut in positive ways. They decrease a stress signal in the body. And they also help produce the thing that we were talking about earlier, amino acids. So they create tryptophan and serotonin for the brain. They're anti-inflammatory, and they have effects similar to antidepressants. Again, I don't really like to take a lot of pills, so I try to get this every day. I don't miss a day with kefir. Every morning my kids drink kefir in a smoothie with a ton of greens and blueberries for the antioxidants and a little bit of flaxseed oil. They drink that every morning. I do too. I would not miss a day with probiotic foods. We get so many of the beneficial microbes stripped out of us through things in the environment, through our harmful food that we take in on just a daily basis because we live in the kind of society that we live in. And so if you don't replace those on a daily basis, you're going to get in trouble. The balance is going to tip. So find one of these that you like to make. Sauerkraut, yogurt without all the sugar, not the store-bought yogurt. There's kombucha, is a fermented black tea. That's a really good one to get you off soda. It's easy to make. You can now buy it in the store. So find something that you like to make and start getting that into your diet every day. Kefir, the studies on the strains of probiotics that are the most beneficial for anxiety and depression are found in kefir. I say kefir, but I think they say kefir. It is like a liquid yogurt, and again, you can buy it in the store, you can make it, you can buy a culture and add it. It's hard to find decent milk to make it with, and so I just buy it. It's probably not as powerful as if I made it at home, but there's a time factor as well. So two things, we're going to replace the missing positive bacteria in our guts, but then you also have to take out the inflammatory agents, so the food and the environmentally harmful agents and stress. And so we've already talked about in this program how to remove stress, exercise, mindfulness, and that's huge. If you do nothing else on changing your food, if you learned mindfulness, you would start to see an improvement. But if you couple that with changing your food, adding in the positive bacteria, and then taking out some of the more common environmentally harmful agents, then you'll see an even bigger difference. So it's degrees. It's how much better do you want to feel? Do you want to feel a little bit better? Do you want to feel a lot better? And that depends how hard you work. It is easier just to take one pill. That's why we do it. But I never even felt all that great. I mean, I got by, but I didn't feel great when I was taking SSRIs. It was a Band-Aid for sure. And addressing root causes is pretty powerful. So elimination diets. How do you find out what foods you react to? You do a Whole30 or a clean gut or a GAPS diet. You figure out what foods cause you to react, and you keep a food journal, and it's 30 days, and it seems impossible. It took me about 3 or 4 times to do it, to really figure out what foods I needed to cut and what foods I could keep. And I really do prefer to eat the cinnamon roll, when I see that at the store, but I don't prefer the way I feel the next, 5 days, 10 days after that. It's a choice. It's a choice. Do I want to feel good, or do I want to eat the cinnamon roll? And over time, I have decided more and more often that I'd rather feel good. This is a really good app. It's called Skin Deep. It's put out by the Environmental Working Group, which is a nonprofit. It's an independent agency that you can put it on your phone, and you can scan almost any personal care product or cleaning product at the store, and it'll give you a rating. So this says 6. I don't really buy anything over a 3. It'll tell you why these agents are harmful. Anything that's under a 3, I think, is fairly good. If you get a 1 or a 0, then you're great. But we're pretty dependent on harmful chemicals. And anyway, put Skin Deep on your phone and start looking at what you're using. A lot of women's personal care makeup is really high in environmentally harmful agents and gene disruptors, really. So put that on your phone and see if you can't start replacing. Find an equivalent product that you like that has a low score. And it's not an immediate thing, but your body can only fight off so much of this. And once it gets to a critical load in the body, you'll start to see inflammation and reaction in some form or another. It may be an autoimmune disease. It may be food allergies start to show up. It may be any kind of illness, but a lot of times it's in a mental disorder. Yard chemicals, Roundup is bad, y'all. It's just bad. There's just no getting around it. It's a very harmful agent to human bodies, and that's coming out more and more often. But we use so many chemicals in our yards and in our homes for cleaning and in our personal care products, and our bodies just can't take that load. So cut them out wherever you can. So here's my kind of step-by-step. And again, I want to say I'm not a doctor, and if you have any any questions about that, please see your doctor. The problem is your doctor probably won't know. So it's a catch-22. You have to be your own expert. The book that I put in the notes is by Dr. Kelly Brogan, who we started out with in this program. And if she had written that book when I started this process, she would have saved me a ton of time. I had to find out all this information by trial and error, by reading about 30 different books. And basically, this book that came out last year put everything that I had to find into one book. And she's done the research. She's done her homework. She's very serious about documenting her claims. And so read that book, get that book, and read it, and then start on your own program. My recommendation is there are very few people, unless you're worried, if you're worried about birth control, you can't do this one. But birth control pill is one of the biggest culprits for depression and anxiety. So Kelly Brogan will tell you she won't even see a patient until they're off birth control and have done an elimination diet. She says, I can't help you if you're on these 2 things. I really can't help you. So if you are willing, you could try St. John's wort. It's a mild effect. It takes about 2 weeks, but you will notice over time, and you'll notice if you get off of it, you'll notice a shift. You can do the labs or just skip the labs and go to trial and error. Most of the things that we're recommending are vitamins, nutrients, and supplements that have very low, if any, negative side effects. So I did trial and error. I think I know my own body. I got labs done, but they didn't really help me. What was missing was I just didn't have enough in my body to make it do what it needed to do. And so once I found those missing pieces, that was a key. Probiotic foods, get those into your diet. Find an amino acid. There's not anybody who's not low in an amino acid. Find the one that makes the difference for you. And do an elimination diet. Get Skin Deep on your phone and start looking at the products that you use. And meditate. So pulling from the earlier lessons, I find this is just a kind of like a three-legged stool. You've got environmental factors, which include food and chemical agents and supplements. And then you've got retraining the brain, which is the lizard brain part that we talked about. And then you've got reducing stress. So those three things come together. So reducing stress, exercise, and or mindfulness practice, that's key. Stress hormone is just as effective as or important as retraining the brain. And it is also equally important to finding the underlying chemical and physiological deficits. So all of those are important. And you have to do at least one to see any benefits. If you do all three, and number 4, rebuilding the microbiome, which means taking out inflammatory foods and adding in beneficial bacteria, you're going to see a marked difference. But you will see a difference if you do any of those. So don't get overwhelmed. It's a lot. This is like a 3-year process for me. I didn't do all this at once. I did the food 1 year, and then I did the mindfulness another year, and then I added the retraining the brain another year. All the time, finding out about the microbiome and how it's connected to all this. It was a slow process, and a lot of people look at that and say, well, I'd rather just go take my pill. And that is an option. It is an option, except that I would never trade the benefits of feeling healthy for a Band-Aid effect of feeling okay. So good luck, and I'll answer lots of questions. Feel free to message me in the Facebook group or email me. I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a lot of finding out about your body. You are the expert on your body. There is no doctor that is going to know you as well as you do. And so if you become the expert on your body, you can find the things that it needs in order to function well. Thanks.